Over the years, I've taught a lot of students how to manipulate and use single-dimensional arrays in many different programming languages. So I want to show you how to work with single-dimensional arrays in C++. In this video, we'll be using a simple for loop to fill an array and the same type of for loop to print out the results. You can do this. It's not all that difficult. Just buttress yourself with a little bit of caffeine and dive in. So in part one of working with single dimensional arrays, I'm going to be working with this array, float grades of size 10. So if you look at an array, it has a name, but since it's size 10, it can store 10 different numbers. Now we always have to tell the compiler which one of those 10 we're trying to access, and we do that by giving it a subscript. We have to tell it I want item number 0, which is a 100, or I want item number 6, which happens to be holding an 80, and the last item in the array is item number 9. So that's another thing you always have to keep in the back of your mind when working with arrays. Even though the size of the array is 10, the elements, the subscripts in the array go 0 to 9. Alright, so this program is going to show us how to load up a single dimensional array, and like any great performance, any great play, you probably want to know the names of the performers. Well, okay, so maybe this play is not going to win a Tony Award, but let's look at the name of the players anyway. So the first thing we've got is a constant called size that is going to set the size of my single dimensional array. Since we're using a for loop, we're going to have a loop control variable, which is traditionally just a variable with the name x. We're going to input each grade into float in grade, which is just a floating point variable. And then finally, the array we've all been waiting for, float grades of size 10. Look at that. It's got huge tracks of floats. It's a float array. It can hold 10 floats because I'm using the constant size. So the name of the array is float grades. It is size 10, just like I showed you in my little Excel spreadsheet, and the subscripts are going to go 0 to 9. Now right now, there is nothing in the array but garbage. There's just random values probably. We're going to load them from the keyboard with a for loop, taking x from 0 all the way up to 9. You see, I'm saying less than size, and each time through the loop we're adding 1 to x with the plus plus. Now in the array, we're going to give the user a prompt and say, please enter grade number x plus 1, and then a nice little space bar so everything looks nice. Now the reason I say x plus 1 because the first time through the loop, x has a 0, and we don't want to say, please enter grade 0. So I just say plus 1 so it looks better to the user. We're going to input the grade, and then this is what puts the grade into the array. So the first time through the loop, x has a value of 0. So we're putting that grade, the user types in a 100, and we just put a 100 into subscript 0 of float grades. Isn't it amazing? Now, perhaps it'd be better if I just ran the program first, and then we'll see how it works in its entirety. So I'm going to come up here to run the program by clicking on the green triangle. It's compiled the program. I'm going to pull the command line window onto the screen and start typing grade 100, 100. I'll put in 4 100s, 4 80s, and then 2 90s. Then it's going to end, and then I have a second for loop that just prints out the content of the arrays. And I can press any key here to close this window. So this first loop is doing the input from the keyboard. In this second for loop right here, still doing the same range, starting at 0, going to less than size, less than 10, But here we're just printing out every element in the array. So here is my array, and then I have to tell it which one in the array I want to print out. So the first time through the loop, X has a value of 0, so I'm printing out float grades 0. The second time through the loop, I'm printing out float grades 1. So as I enter these grades, I then print them out using a for loop as well. All right, so let's watch this in action, and we can do this in action by using the debugger. So the debugger allows me to pause my program at certain points while it's running. So I'm going to come over here across from line 29 and click in the gray margin, and I get a red circle. So I'm saying when you hit this line of code, pause the program. So let's hit run. It's going to get to the point where it's asking, please enter grade number 1. I'm going to type in the 100 and press enter. Now I've hit my breakpoint. And if you look right here, float in grade has the 100 that I typed in, but I have not executed this line of code yet. This code has not run. So what you can do in the debugger when you're looking at an array is if you come down to this tooltip and hit the triangle, it will open up the array, and you can see there's just kind of garbage values in every subscript of the array. Now I'm getting ready to put data into subscript 0. I'm getting ready to put a 100 into subscript 0. So if I run this line of code by coming up to the taskbar and saying step over, if I open up float grades, now you can see the first element of the array has the 100. I just input the first value. It's going to hit the bottom of the for loop. I'm going to hit step over, and when it comes back around, now X has a value of 1. We're going to be asking the user to type in the next grade. So let's type in a 99 for this one. So now I have a 99 waiting to go into my wonderful, fantastic, stupendous single dimensional array. Okay, float grades. What the heck? And you can see right now, it still has garbage right here because I have not actually run this line of code. As soon as I hit step over, however, and I open it up, you'll see now I've got the 99 in subscript number 1. Isn't that amazing? So you can guess what happens next. We get to the bottom of the loop. I'm going to keep saying step over. Now X has a value of 3, so it says, please enter grade number X has a value of 2. Remember, the first input was 0 into subscript 0. The second input was into subscript 1. So now X has a value of 2. Now we're printing out the message as X plus 1. So it says, please enter grade number 3. And let's do a 98 on this one. How about that? So now I have the 98 in float in grade. And I'll hit step over, and it just put it into the array. So now you see we've got 100, 99, 98. And if we keep going, it's going to keep going until X gets to a value of 9. So I tell you what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to put a breakpoint on line 32, click on the breakpoint on line 29 and turn it off, and then tell my program to continue, and it will run normally until it hits the next breakpoint. So now it's going to ask me to type in grade number 4. How about 97? Grade number 5, 96. Let's do some 80s. And I'll do a 90 and a 95. Now it's hit my breakpoint. It's waiting to just print out a blank line right here, but this is an opportunity for me to come back up to float grades, hit the triangle, and I can see that it has looped 10 times and loaded up all those numbers I typed in into the array. Well, my program is still paused at the breakpoint on line 32, but if you look down here in this box, it says auto. These are my automatic variables. Here's float grades. If I hit the plus right here and open that up, you can see the values that are stored in that array. So that's another way to look at the value of the variables. I can also see X currently has a value of 10. And I can see that the last grade that was input was a 95. Now, if I just single step through my code, I'm going to go into this for loop. X is going to get set back to 0, and I can hold my mouse over it, and I'm going to output grade number X plus 1, so that's going to print out grade number 1, and it's going to print out subscript 0 of the array. And remember, if we look at the array, that's going to print out the 100. So as soon as I run this line of code, I'll hit step over, and if I go back to my output window, you can now see it said grade number 1 equals 100. Now it's going to hit the bottom of my loop and keep going because X is still less than size. Now X has a value of 1. When it does this cout, you're going to see it output, come on, the 99. And that's exactly what is in my array. So the third time through the loop, it's going to print out the 98 because X is going to have a value of 2. My subscript is now going to be 2. I'm saying go into float grades at position 2. Right now I'm on position 1, but the next time through the loop, when it goes to do this cout, now you see X has a value of 2. And float grades at position 2 is 98. So this time it's going to print out 98, and we can see that on my output screen, and it's going to continue 7 more times. So rather than me stepping all the way through all that with the debugger, I'm going to put a breakpoint on line 38, which is just after the loop, turn off my breakpoint on line 32 because I don't need that anymore. It doesn't hurt, but then I'll tell it to continue. And if we look at my output, now you see it has outputted the entire array. So at this point, I can tell my program to continue until it quits, and you get the standard on your command window. Once you've done that, it says press any key to close this window, and my program is stopped. I can turn this breakpoint back off just because I don't want those ugly breakpoints hanging around in my pretty, pristine code. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's an exaggeration, pretty pristine code. Actually, this code is kind of ugly because it only inputs 10 grades no matter what, and it only outputs 10 grades no matter what. What if it's early in the semester and the student only has 3 grades? You know, what do we do with this situation? This program will not handle that. If we want to end right now, wouldn't it be nice if we could write the program to say, if you enter a -1, quit asking for input? This program won't do that. Now you just got a bad grade. So we just have to be psychic with this program and know what the students' grades are going to be ahead of time. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do about it. With a for loop, it's a fixed number of times. To fix this problem, which is part 2, we have to use a while loop. In a while loop, we can set the conditions to say loop while we've got less than 10 values and the user hasn't typed in -1. So we can set a compound condition, and if the user enters a -1, then we can exit the loop. And we can keep track of how many values the user actually entered. So that's part 2, and that's much more flexible and much more real world. So if you want to see more of this, please like and subscribe and watch my playlist on C++. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot. Take care.